Hello and welcome back. This week, I'm covering Module 4 of the program here at Starfish Social Club. If you've missed the last 3 solo episodes I did, they cover Modules 1, 2, and 3. The modules are designed to go in order. They build off of each other. However, students can start the program with any module, especially if they choose to stay for the entire year. They'll eventually get all the concepts anyways, and the concepts are interwoven throughout each of the modules. We do focus on specific concepts at specific times of the year, but students can start the program at any time and still get just as much benefit. Module 4 is all about relationships, primarily friendships. And this is the culmination. This is what we've been building toward. The whole purpose of the program here at Starfish Social Club is helping my students create friendships. However, there's so much more that comes before we get to this point. And that's why this is module 4 and not module 1. When kids are struggling to make and maintain friendships, there are lots of reasons behind it. It's like an onion. There are layers to it. And so it's not really possible to just teach kids a couple things and change the trajectory of their relationships. That's not really how it works. There are lots of things that they have not yet learned or don't yet understand. So those are all the things that we've covered in the program up until now. Another note I want to make about our kids and friendships is that some of our kids say they don't care about making friends. This is usually students who are older, students who are teenagers, possibly even adults, that may say they don't care about making friends. In my personal and professional opinion, I don't think there's anybody in the world who doesn't want friends. What I do think happens is that as human beings, when there is something that we want, something that we're working towards, something that we're striving for, something we're hoping for, and it's not happening, and we can't figure out how to make it happen, what to do differently to bring it in, we start telling ourselves the story that we don't care. Because that feels better. It feels better to say, I don't care, than it does to say, I really care and I can't figure it out. I can't make it work. If you think about if you've ever been wanting a promotion or a different job, even me with my dating history, wanting to buy a house, wanting to move somewhere else, wanting to have more children. There are so many situations in life where we put time and effort and energy, sometimes money toward things, and we don't get what we're trying to get. And it's easier to just tell ourselves and to tell other people that we don't care than it is to acknowledge that we really care and we just don't know how to make it happen. This is what I notice when kids say they don't care about having friends, that it's not important to them. Even kiddos that I work with that have minimal verbal skills, even kiddos who tend to seem like they are put off by other people, seek connections and seek relationships. I've never had a student at Starfish, I'm on year 8 now, never had a student that after doing some work in the program did not start to gravitate toward other kids and did not start to engage with other kids and try to communicate with other kids. We just get tired of things not working out and not knowing what to do any differently. Also, a lot of the students who may make this claim that they don't care about having friends are students who understand their reputation, understand that other kids don't always want to be around them, don't always want to hang out with them, don't always want to talk to them, play with them, whatever their age may be. And they just don't know what to do any differently. Even recently, I have a new student in the program who, when I met with him, said that his goal is to be one of the weirdest people in the world. But in my program, we just did week 6, and he's never said or done anything that I would consider to be weird. So I think sometimes we trick ourselves into thinking that we're okay with the way things are. We trick ourselves into thinking that we want to be weird, we want to be annoying, we want to be the outcast, we want to be the underdog, because we don't know how not to be. And so we trick ourselves into accepting our current situation, even though it's really not what we want. And on a personal note, I even do that. I talk about, dating sometimes on here. I do that with myself. I go through phases where I trick myself into thinking like I'm really good being single, which I am. And I'm also dating for a reason. I'm dating because I'm looking for my partner, my person. But I notice I even do that with myself, that I will try to convince myself that I'm okay with the way things are, because I get really exhausted from dating. I'll just say that. Sometimes we may do that with financial situations, with relationships with other people, with our work situations. We try to trick ourselves into thinking that it's okay the way that things are, even though we know that it's not okay. So that's my side note about that, is I do not think there's anybody who is truly okay without connections to other people. I just don't think that that's a thing. So that brings us to module 4, which is called connection. This is the connection module. All of our modules are 8 weeks long. This is the module that I teach live from March to May. It is 8 weeks to stronger relationships. That's kind of the tagline that I've given it. Week 1, I've said this before, I'll say it again. Week 1 is about the concept of strangers. I think I just said this recently on a podcast. I really do not like the concept of stranger danger. I actually think it's a lot more harmful than it is helpful. So in week 1, we talk about what a stranger is. And one of the interesting things about this lesson is I start by asking the students, what is a stranger? And most of them, including students who have been through the curriculum before, will say something about strangers are dangerous, strangers are going to hurt you, strangers are evil, strangers are mean. Probably 80% of the responses I get are things like that. So we talk about how a stranger is just someone we don't know. That's it. A stranger is just someone we don't know. And our society has created this mental image of a stranger as this threatening, foreboding character that's out to harm us. And that's such a misrepresentation. We are all strangers to almost everybody in the world. And so I make the point to the students that if we don't ever talk to strangers, we would never have friends. Everybody that we know, except our family, started out as a stranger to us, including me. I make that point to the students also, that I'm a stranger. I meet with everybody before they start in the program, but before we have that initial meeting, I'm a stranger. And then the first day that they're in the group, they're a stranger and everybody's a stranger to them. And how awkward would it be if we couldn't talk to strangers? And so we all just sat around for an hour and nobody talked because we were taught not to talk to strangers. It's the same with sending our kids to school. The same with when our kids are older and they go to college or they're working. How isolating and lonely it must be for people who hold on to this concept of stranger danger into their young adulthood. Can you imagine going to college, having your first job, and you believe that other people are out to harm you, and so you don't talk to the people around you? Week 1 is about the concept of strangers. We absolutely need to be aware, we need to be safe, and we need to be smart. We don't need to tell people where we live, where we go to school. We don't even need to tell people our names. But just because we don't know somebody, that one piece of information means absolutely nothing about the other person. Just because we don't know somebody, that tells us nothing about their character. Okay, moving on from that. Week 2, we talk about acquaintances. A lot of our kids don't understand the difference between acquaintances and friends. And I think social media has made this even more of a challenge because on social media, it's considered, it's a friend request. These are your friends on social media, but they're not. Most of the people, if you have, I'm just going to say Facebook, because most of the people who listen to this podcast, you guys are same general age as I am, and we tend to be Facebook people. Most of the people who are your quote unquote friends on Facebook are not actually your friends. They are acquaintances. Some of them may be strangers. Some of them you may have never talked to, but most of them are acquaintances. That's what we talk about in week 2. An acquaintance is somebody that we know. We might not know their name, but if we see them in public, we recognize that we know them. Common examples are neighbors. For kids, it could be the siblings or the parents of a kid that you know. It could be friends of your parents. It is the teacher that you had last year. It is other teachers who teach in your school. It is kids who play on your soccer team. Almost everybody that we actually know is an acquaintance. They're not a stranger once we have a connection to them. They're no longer a stranger, but they're not a friend. And some of our kiddos, especially if you've done the quiz, the profile quiz, our circle kiddos tend to think everybody's a friend, which is a great way to think about it, but it's not realistic. Most people we know are acquaintances. Part of week 2 is talking about what are the expectations when we are around acquaintances. And one of them is that we engage in small talk. So we talk about small talk and how small talk is just intended to be polite and to be friendly. That's all that's intended by it. It gives us a reputation for being friendly. We talk about how when people ask, how are you? In our culture, you say fine. With an acquaintance, we don't share personal information. So even if we're having a rough day, if this person is an acquaintance and they say, "How are you?" we don't share personal information. That's not expected in an acquaintance relationship. We talk about how if we see an acquaintance, we are expected to greet them, to acknowledge them. Even if we don't know their name, we can at least acknowledge that we know them. We would also be expected to introduce them to someone that we may be with, like our parents or siblings or friends. Again, most people that we know are acquaintances, but some of our kids, if I ask them, "Do you have friends?" they name the 20 kids in their class, or they'll name, the 7 kids in their group at Starfish. But those are all acquaintances. They're not friends yet. They are potential friends. Everybody's a potential friend. Week 3, we talk about the concept of a team. A team is a group of people who are together around a specific purpose. And usually they did not choose each other. So for kids, the common example is sports team. For adults, a team at work. A team is a group of people who are together for a purpose. Because of that, their time together is spent directed toward that purpose. There's not a lot of social interactions that go on a team. Most of the time spent together, the conversations, etc., are about the purpose of the team. So if this is a soccer team, you spend your time together practicing soccer and probably talking about soccer. If it's a work team, you're spending your time together working on the task at hand. So some of our kids who are really social and enjoy social conversations struggle a bit on teams because they want to be more social, and that's not always appropriate, because on a team, we're there to participate. We also talk about how some of the expectations on a team are that everybody's participating. Everybody is helping the team move toward the goal. This could be a choir group. This could be people who are in a theater production. It's all kinds of different teams. But again, the point is that this group is together to move toward a goal. There's a purpose. And so we're all expected to contribute to that goal and that purpose. We talk about how in Starfish Social Club, during the lesson time, we are more like a team. We did not choose each other. The kids don't choose who they're in a group with. And we are actually here for a specific purpose. And so when kids are being silly or goofy or off topic during the lesson, other kids can get kind of annoyed and frustrated by that. Because in the lesson part of Starfish Social Club, we are actually functioning as a team. We're all working toward something together. We're working toward improved social skills together. And we don't always like it when other people aren't following the plan or are derailing what we're doing. Week 4 is, sometimes I call this like a club. Week 4 is a group of people that we did choose. So a club is a pretty good example. Game time at Starfish Social Club is usually a good example of this, because the students, when we're in person, the students can choose who they're spending time with. Even on Zoom, they can choose who they're engaging with. So in a club, it is definitely a much more social environment than a team. And there may be a goal in mind, but it's usually not that important. Some great examples are sports teams, but that are more social, where it's really just, let's go have fun together. So there may be a goal, there may be a task, but it's not all that important. Even if you think about a youth group at church, That's another great example of a club. There are activities, there are things going on, but it's a really social situation. So in a club setting, it's much more appropriate. You're actually expected to be social with the other person that are the other people that are in that setting. It's just a much more social situation. We then get week 5 is when we start talking about friendships. So 5 weeks into module 4 is when we actually get to talking about friendships. In my professional, personal opinion, and what I teach the kids is that a couple things that qualify somebody as being a friend. Number 1 is that friends are people who choose to spend time together. The other kids in our classroom are not our friends if we are not doing anything with them outside of school. They're acquaintances. The other students at Starfish are acquaintances unless we are doing something with them outside of Starfish. I do consider spending time with people online to be a friendship. I do. I think as long as two people are choosing to spend time together, whatever that looks like, I consider that. I had a student ask me that last week, actually. It could be texting. We don't even have to physically see each other. As long as we are choosing to spend time together, I consider that a friendship. Another really important component to friendship that can trip up a lot of our kids sometimes is that a friend is someone who makes you feel good. If you are spending time together with another person, even if it's mutual and both of you guys are choosing to spend time together, but you feel like crap every time you hang out with this person, or every time you guys are texting, or you feel anxious, or you feel insecure, that is not a friend. Friends are people who make us feel good. Friends are people that we choose to spend time with and that we want to spend time with. And I have found that a lot of our students tend to be about half and half on this. About half of students that I've worked with, when we talk about friendships, they want nothing to do with people that they don't get along with or don't have things in common with, don't have, similar personalities. They want nothing to do with that. They would rather be on their own than spend time with someone that they don't enjoy spending time with. And then we have about half of our kiddos who are so, I don't want to say desperate, but are wanting connection so badly that they will hang out with anybody who will give them time and space. And so this is the heartbreaking part of it, is that a lot of our kids, about half of our kids, are really prone to hanging out with people who may not be the best influence, who may actually antagonize our kids. Sometimes our kids know it and sometimes they don't. They may take advantage of our kids. They just might not be the best people for our kids to be spending time with. But some of our kids are aching so badly for that connection that they would rather have that than nothing. The adult version of that is romantic relationships. The adult version of that is people who would rather be in an unhealthy relationship than no relationship. People who are always in a relationship, even though they're often dysfunctional. That's the adult version of that. And if we don't get this handled when our kids are kids, that's the path. So that's why this is a really important concept for me, is that a friend is somebody who makes you feel good. And if you don't feel good when you're around this person, it's not a friend. The other important piece of that is that it goes both ways. So just like we want to feel good around people that we choose to spend time with, we want them to feel the same way. We want them to feel comfortable and calm and welcomed we want them to feel the same way that we want to feel. So that's something that some of our kids come to realize as well, is that half of it is how we feel and half of it is how they feel. Another point about friends is that we get to choose who our friends are and they get to choose us. Sometimes we will want to be friends with somebody and they will not want to be friends with us. And sometimes they will want to be friends with us and we will not want to be friends with them. And that is always okay. Friendship is a choice. Both of those scenarios are always okay. It doesn't ever give us a reason to be disrespectful to anybody or for anybody to be disrespectful to us. But it is always okay to not want to be friends with somebody who wants to be friends with you. And it's always okay for the opposite to be true as well. This is one of the reasons I am not a fan of trying to organize play dates, hangouts, those kinds of things for our kids, because we tend to do them with whoever's available, whoever has shown interest, regardless of what our kid thinks about this other kid. They may have nothing in common. They may have clashing personalities. They may just not be interested in each other. So I'm not a fan of adults trying to organize play dates or hangouts unless the kids, the students, the teens, whatever, have said, this is somebody I would like to spend more time with. If we as the adults are trying to push that and facilitate that, they may not even want to spend time with each other. So I do caution that I don't think we should be playing matchmaker with our kids. I think we need to listen to who they talk about and ask them who they would like to spend time with, and then see if we can facilitate those connections. The week after that, we talk about what I call partnerships, and these are close relationships. This could be best friends. This could be roommates. This could be a romantic partner. We do have kids of all ages in the program. So I do talk about romantic relationships here and there. But since a lot of our kids are younger, it's never the focus of anything. But I do think it's important for our kids who are older. So for this week, this is week 6, we talk about how in a partnership, both people need to feel the same way, whether we're talking about best friends or, romantic partners. Both people need to want to be each other's partner. Both people need to feel like they are each other's best friend. Sometimes we can get in a situation where our kids start saying someone is their best friend and the other kiddo doesn't feel the same way. And so we just want to be mindful of that. Sometimes our kids can get a little territorial over other kids, which comes from anxiety, and it comes from fear of this person leaving them, basic fear of abandonment, right? And so sometimes our kids can get possessive over other kids, but what that's actually doing is pushing that other kid away. It's actually making that other kid feel uncomfortable, and they are less likely to want to be in this relationship. So with partnerships, these are people that we share personal information with. This may be the only person we're sharing personal information with. There's an expectation of trust. There's an expectation of privacy. There's an expectation of helping each other. If somebody needs help in a partnership, there's an expectation that we are the person to help. Again, this could be a best friend, this could be a romantic partner, it could be a roommate. Any situation where two people are in a more personal relationship with each other. Week 7, we talk about family relationships. One of the activities that we do in week 7 is I have the students think about, just brainstorm all the things that they can think of as a group that their parents do for them or buy for them. So we come up with this whole list of all the things that you guys pay for, all the things sometimes kids even say something like, they pay for me to be in Starfish, right? Or they make sure that I'm in class on time. But all the things that parents do for kids, pay for, all of that. And it's obviously there's no end to that list. We just go until the conversation kind of dies out a bit. And then I flip it and I say, okay, now we're going to make a list of all the things that you guys do for your parents. Obviously, you're not buying anything. So our list can only be the things that we're doing for our parents. It's a really interesting conversation. And the kids realize that that list is quite short. And so that leads us into a conversation of one of the biggest ways that kids can help parents and contribute to the family is through their attitude. So one of the biggest ways that kids can be supportive of family is in the way that they respond to things and in the way that they handle things, the way that they do things, the way that they talk to people. That's really a big part of being a kid in a family when you don't have a lot of other things that you can do to help, is taking control of your attitude in the family. And one of the things that I tell kids is, a big part of this program is the concept of reputation. And so way back in module 1, we've talked about the reputation that we have. And one of the things I tell kids is that even in your family, you have a reputation. And most kids get caught off guard by that concept, that even in your family, you have a reputation. So what do you think it is? What do you think your reputation is in your family? And we have really great conversations around this concept. Again, for a lot of the kids, this is not something they've ever thought about before. And we talk about how parents, when we're talking about other people, if you have a reputation for being rude or disrespectful or unkind, other people are just going to stop being around you. That's just what's going to happen. But in a family, it's usually not what happens. But what does happen is that parents are more willing to do things for people that they like being around. Parents are more willing to take their kids to do fun things and to buy them things and to want to spend time with them when they're enjoyable to be around. So it's another really powerful conversation that parents love kids no matter what. It's part of what happens. Parents love kids no matter what. But it doesn't mean that parents always like being around their kids. If they're arguing, if they're complaining, if they're picking fights with siblings, if they're refusing to do things they were asked to do, all of that good stuff. People are more likely to want to be around us, to want to do things for us and with us when we are pleasant to be around. And then number 8 is basically, how do we move through the phases? How do we go from being a stranger to an acquaintance, from being an acquaintance to being a friend, which is really the big leap, from who are the best people to consider as friends. For that one, it's usually people that we are in a club type situation with because we already know we have things in common with them. How do we do this? How do we move from acquaintance to friends? And even in some of the adult ADHD groups that I'm in on Facebook, this question comes up so often. Somebody posted about a week ago about how at work she gets along with everybody. They all, enjoy working together. They enjoy each other. But she said, it's never moved beyond that. I don't know how to move it beyond that. So I jumped in. And the next step, the bridge between an acquaintance and a friend is to start making plans together. So somebody needs to just offer to make plans together. And the easy way to do this is to base it around what you know about this person. We should have been already having lots of conversations with this person. If we're in school with them, if we work with them, if we're in Starfish with them, we should have been having conversations with them, or at least listening to what they are talking about. And we should have identified some things that we have in common. It is difficult to form a friendship with someone we do not have things in common with. It's not impossible. We can be friends with anybody we choose to, but it is difficult because we don't have things to talk about. We don't have things to do together if we don't have things in common. So if we start with thinking about what have we noticed that we have in common, then when we are asking to spend time together, we can base it around what we have in common. If both of you like movies, you can invite them to a movie. If you both like video games, you can invite them to play online with you, or for one person to go to the other person's home and actually play together. If you guys are on a swim team together, one person can invite the other one to go hang out at a pool one weekend. If you guys both like amusement parks, you can invite each other there. If you guys both like animals, you can take a trip to the zoo. If you're not sure what you guys have in common, you can do something more neutral, like going to an arcade, going for a walk in the park, just something that's a little more neutral if you're not really sure what you guys have in common. But this is how we move from an acquaintance to a friendship, is we make plans with people. In this lesson, we talk about the different ways people may respond when we try to make plans with them and what each one of them means and where we go from there. So people may say no, people may say yes and be excited. People may actually kind of be confusing and we might not know. So part of the lesson is talking about how do we handle each one of those? How do we handle each one of those possible responses? One thing that I share with the students that I think is applicable to everybody is when you're making this step, I find that being a woman, I think this is even more applicable, again, a woman who's dating. Most women have been in a situation where somebody has asked for our number and we don't want to give it out. And so what typically happens in a situation like that is that we may be untruthful about it. We may make up a number. We also tend to feel uncomfortable not giving somebody our number, especially if it's a male-female dynamic. Asking for somebody's number can just create a lot of insecurity unintentionally. So what I suggest is, instead of asking for someone's number, regardless of your gender, regardless of the dynamic between two people, I suggest that the person who's initiating this offer to give their number. So instead of saying, "Can I have your number?" say, "Here's my number," and give them your number. That allows the other person to decide what to do with that information. If you don't hear from them again, you know what they've decided, but that puts the control on them and doesn't make them feel put on the spot or uncomfortable or any of those other things. So again, regardless of the gender of people, regardless of the dynamic, that's always my suggestion when people are exchanging contact information, is for the person who's initiating the interaction to give their contact information. The same with if you're exchanging gamer tags, instead of asking the other people for theirs, give them yours. Give them your information. And then that way they have the ability to do what they want to with it. It just makes people feel a lot more comfortable. And that's it. That's module 4, all about connection. That's how we go from stranger to acquaintance to friends. Those are the different dynamics our kiddos may be in, whether it's a club or a team, and how they're all different from a social perspective. That's module 4. So those are the 4 programs, the 4 modules that make up the program here at Starfish Social Club, and they run in order from August through May. In the summer, we do summer camp and we do things a little bit differently. We don't do the curriculum itself in the summertime. At this point, that may change at some point, but at this point, that's not how it works. So as I mentioned, students can join at any time. They can join with whatever module is coming up next. I did create them to run sequentially, but students are not going to be at a significant disadvantage if they don't start in August. They can really start at any time. It's never too early or too late to start working on our social skills and our ability to make and maintain friendships. So if you'd like to learn more about our program, it is all on the website, starfishsocialclub.org. I also do one-on-one support for kiddos. So actually not even just kiddos, students of all ages. Sometimes because students are older than 21, and so the group is not appropriate for them. Sometimes it's a time zone issue. I had one-on-ones with a student in the UK recently because obviously she's not able to be in our groups. So it could be a time zone issue. Sometimes it's just a preference that students or parents prefer one-on-one as opposed to the group setting. So that's also another option, is one-on-one support. So starfishsocialclub.org is where you can find all of the information. And those are the 4 modules that make up the program here. So thanks for hanging out. Thanks for joining me. As always, I'm really glad that you're here, and I'll see you again next week.